Can everybody hear me? All right. I think we're good.
I think they can.
Okay, great. Welcome to the Things You Can Do Now to Maximize Success on the Bar Exam, presented by Mike Sims, President of BARBRI, and myself, Renwei Chung, PTP Executive Board Member and Above the Law Diversity Columnist. Again, this is going to be recorded so people can access this in the future and can access it on demand as well. I'll go ahead and start with the introductions. Again, Mike Sims will be leading us off, and then I will follow. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think everybody can read my bio, Renwei, but I think the thing I would share with everybody is I'm a Texas attorney, and for the last 26 years, I've basically devoted my law practice to one simple idea, and that is that people like the folks on this call should have to listen to people like me only once. And we're gonna make some progress tonight on making that happen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'll introduce myself as well. Before this call, I learned Mike and I had something in common. I guess two things now, Mike. We're both Texas attorneys, and we were both writers,
right.
Community columnists for the Dallas Morning News. I'm a member of the executive board for the Practice to Partner, or Pipeline to Practice Foundation, and a diversity columnist at Above the Law. Passionate about promoting diversity and inclusion in the legal profession, and really have taken time to mentor many students on succeeding in law school and succeeding as an attorney and succeeding in practicing, in passing the bar. So that is one last hurdle you have to do to become an attorney. It's both nerve-wracking and a little exciting at the same time. For content, I thought we'd start with Mike's tips and really his guidance, and then my slides will follow Mike's. So Mike, we'll kick it off with you.
Great, Renwei, thank you very much. And it is, as I said, it's a real pleasure to be here. And I'm particularly excited to be speaking to this group because I was actually at one of the very earliest meetings of the Pipeline to Practice Foundation and had been so excited. It's hard to believe that the first cohort has actually made it all the way through 3 years of law school. So congratulations to each of you. Yeah, it's really remarkable. And so what I want to do is take probably just 10 or 15 minutes. And if we have any questions, we can answer those certainly after you talk. And one of the questions I get asked probably more than any other is why do people fail the bar exam? And really, in my experience, there are a number of reasons, but one of them is that people just flat don't understand what the thing is about. They've heard lots of rumors, they've heard lots of craziness, but they don't understand. So I thought the first thing we do is just kind of talk about what happens in the bar exam other than anxiety and unpleasantness. So let's take a look at this first slide. And there are, in almost every single state in the United States, two parts to the bar exam. The multiple choice part, which we'll talk about in a moment, and the written part. So let's take this apart and talk about the multiple choice part first. And that is a test that many of you may have heard of called the MultiState Bar Exam. Now, the MultiState Bar Exam, or MBE, is, as you can see, a 200-question multiple choice test. It's in 2 3-hour sessions, 3-hour session in the morning, break for lunch, and a 3-hour session in the afternoon. And there are 100 questions in each of those sections. Now, the MBE is given on the last Wednesday of February and July, all over the country, everywhere except for, you can see a little white spot down at the bottom, Louisiana. Because Louisiana is a civil law state, because it is in fact a foreign country, Louisiana does not use the multi-state bar exam. Now, what's tested on the MBE? And you can see the list of subjects up there, but let's go through them. And it's essentially first-year subjects with a couple of core upper-level subjects. So we've got Civ Pro, criminal law in the first year, Crim Pro in your upper level, contracts, con law, evidence, the upper-level course, real property, and torts. Now, you're going to see a balanced number of questions in each of those subjects. And I think that the main point I want to make right now about the multi-state is, and Renwei, you know this too, having taken it, it's just awfully hard. I mean, it is, there are 200 questions on that test, the highest score in history ever made on that examination. It's been given twice a year, every year since 1972. The highest score ever is 192 out of 200. So that means there are, in fact, 8 questions that God cannot answer on the multi-state bar exam. And so I always say to students, why are you trying? So what are you trying for? Well, and this is good news, and I want you guys to file this away. In almost every jurisdiction in the country, your target score is something around 60 to maybe 65% correct. If you can get 60 to 65% of the multiple choice questions on the bar exam correct, you're going to be golden in every single state in the country. Now, that's the first part, the MBE. Now let's talk about the second part, and that is an essay examination. Notice now that the entire map is, in fact, fully covered, and apologies to Alaskans and Hawaiians because they should be on there too, but the essay exams occur there as well, as does the multi-state. Now we did mention Louisiana, so just in case anybody's going to Louisiana, it is the only all-essay exam in the nation, and it's actually an every other day bar exam. So it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as opposed to most of the rest of the exams, which are either Tuesday, Wednesday, with the essays first and the multi-state, or like our home state of Texas, Wednesday, Thursday with respect to multi-state and essays. And the essays come on the second day of the exam. Now, for any of you going to Texas, by the way, Texas is one of the last 3-day exams in the world. It also features a front-end day that we'll talk about more in just a second. So what do you expect on the essay exam? Well, you're going to see between 6 and 16 essays, depending on the jurisdiction, with Oklahoma coming at the most at 16 essays in 4 2-hour sessions. But the most common configuration that we see is the 6-essay configuration, and it's mainly from something called the multi-state essay exam. Now, don't confuse that with the multi-state bar exam. The multi-state bar exam is the multiple choice part. The multi-state essay exam is the written part. And you can see the subjects there. 6 30-minute questions drawing from this topic list. Business associations, which is corporations, LLCs, agency and partnership, conflict of laws, family law, wills, trusts, and estates, secured transactions, and all 7 MBE subjects. So let's pause there for a second and differentiate between what we just saw on the MBE, which is a list of subjects. All of these subjects will appear. Every single one of them you're going to see questions from. As we go to the MEE, on the other hand, you'll see some of these, but not all of these. Now, the good news about the MEE, if you're going to one of the states that are colored in blue there, it's a very straightforward exam. It's an exam that has patterns in it. There's stuff they love to test, stuff they don't. And your bar review course will help you see that as you dive into it. Okay, those are the big two, the MBE and the MEE. There's another examination out there called the performance test. And it shows up in a whole lot of states. You can see it there in purple. And the performance test is essentially a legal research and writing project. You may have done this in your first year of law school. You may have done a closed memo or a closed brief where you were given all of the research that you needed to do, and you produced it. And if you did that, you may remember you were given, about a week, maybe 2 to do your closed memo or closed brief. Well, now that you're a law school graduate, you're a lot faster now. You get 90 minutes. Yeah, you get 90 minutes to produce a bit of lawyer-like work product. It might be a memo, it might be a brief, but either way, you're going to be able to, given all the materials that you need, you'll analyze, synthesize, and produce the work product. Now, here's my tip on the MPT. Don't disregard it. You know, the MBE, the multiple choice part, scares people because the scores are so low. The multi-state essay exam worries people because you don't know what subjects are coming. And what tends to happen among unsuccessful people is they'll say about the MPT, hey, I don't need to study for this. I don't need to practice for this because all I have to do is write and they give me all of the law. Nothing could be further from the truth. The key to success on the MPT is to actually practice putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and make sure that you turn in and do the practice on it. All right, now there's something you may have heard of called the UBE, or Uniform Bar Exam. And let me talk with you about it for just a second, because you can see as you look at the right side of the slide, It consists of the MBE, the MEE, and the MPT. It's basically all three of the multi-state parts of the bar exam given together in 2 days, on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. It is probably best thought of as a scoring system. And the term you'll hear is portable scoring system. So for example, if you happen to be living in Colorado and you take the UBE and you say, you know, I think I'd like to go practice in New York. Well, assuming you got a score high enough, off to New York you go. Or you'd rather go to North Dakota, off to North Dakota you go. Basically, once you have a UBE score in any of the orange states on your screen, then you can transport that score to any of the other orange states, provided that your score is high enough. Now, if you're wondering where can you find out information about all that stuff, well, it's real easy. In fact, you don't need to memorize everything I just said, because there's this wonderful book called the Barbary Digest. And the Barbary Digest is kind of my nerd's guide to the bar exam. It contains all the details on every bar exam in the United States, more stuff than you could ever want to know about bar exams. You can see the link there at the bottom, barbry.com about the bar exam. So click there to find it out. Now, other thing you got to know, what do you need to do? And you can see really that once you know what's on the bar exam, once you know what it's about, then there's some steps that you need to take. First thing you have to do is you have to complete a state bar exam application. Universally true in every single state. Other thing you have to do is pass something called the MultiState Professional Responsibility Exam, or MPRE. Now that's a 60-question test on legal ethics, and it's typically taken during your second or third year of law school. But let me give you guys a really important tip, and especially considering the timing of when we're doing this call. Time and again, I see third-year law students put off taking the MPRE until the spring of their third year, March of their third year. They sign up to take it, something happens, they get a cold, they get the flu, they've had too much fun the night before, so they either don't take it or don't pass it. Well, guess when the next administration of the MPRE is? If you miss it in March, the next administration is in August. So what that means is, when everybody else leaves on their bar trip after the bar is over with in July, then you're going to get to stay and take another exam. So you want Mike Sims' advice? Sign up for the November MPRE, the one that's coming up this fall. If you haven't taken it already, take in November. Then if you need a safety valve, you have March. All right, what comes next? Character and fitness. The bar examiners are going to ask you pages and pages and pages of information about yourself and your background. Key point here, disclose everything. Far better to disclose and explain than for them to think you're hiding something. And then finally, yeah, you guys know this. The fact that you're here means you know this. You got to pass the bar exam. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's where we're going to spend the rest of our time. And I've got some high-level tips. Now, Renwei's going to go in some particular detail. But I think, as I think about it from my 26 years of experience, it really is thinking about how to study smarter, not harder. And, I guess the first thing I'd say is think for a moment if you've ever known anybody that studied for the bar. And if you did, well, they probably look something like that. And so that was for good reason. Your goal when you're studying for the bar instead is to look like this. Now, how do you do it? Well, there's 4 tips for you. First of all, get a schedule and stick to it. A bar review course is going to help you with this. Right? At Barbary, we have a thing we call the personal study plan that plans your schedule day by day by day by day. Every bar review course has one. Next one, this is a big one. Practice and then practice some more. The key to success on the bar exam is the same as the key to success in athletics. It's the same as key to success in any activity. You have to practice doing it. Work lots of practice multi-state questions, work lots of practice essays. If you're in a performance test jurisdiction, work lots of practice performance tests. Maintain a normal life. You've got to keep eating. You've got to keep sleeping. You've got to keep breathing. Call your mother. She's proud of you. If you have a significant other and you still want to have that significant other after the bar exam, go out with them. There is time to live even when there's time to study. And interestingly, the learning science is abundantly clear that the time spent in breaks, the time spent asleep, is just as important and sometimes even more important to your retention of material than is the time spent in the library working through your bar review books. And then lastly, and I know that I speak for everybody at the Pipeline to Practice Foundation as well, use all of the resources available to you. Take advantage of the fact that you now know where to find me. Take advantage of the fact that there are a whole bunch of folks on the board of the Pipeline to Practice Foundation that have been where you are. Take advantage of the academic support resources in your law school, because there are a lot of people cheering for you. There are a lot of people to support you, and a lot of people dedicated to the idea that it's going to be one and done when you take the bar exam coming up soon. So really, that's what I've got. I think you've got some tips as well.
Yeah, Mike, that was excellent. I wish I had that when I was taking the bar exam last February. So I just recently took it February 2017. Right. One thing that made me laugh is you recommended taking the MPRE before the bar exam, and I cannot agree with you more. I made the mistake by waiting to take the MPRE, and I had to take that after the bar exam, and that was concerning to say the least. I was mentally fatigued. I just felt like I ran a mental marathon, and the last thing I wanted to do was take the MPRE. So, I mean, that was great. I'm going to keep this slide up for a second because I think you're absolutely right when you say if you are in a bar prep course, that inherently gives you structure, a schedule, and discipline. And it makes you practice. And I like to say, a lot of people say practice makes perfect, but I like to kind of qualify that a little more nuanced is perfect practice makes perfect. And again, you don't have to be perfect on the bar exam, but your practice, you should practice like you're taking the bar exam for real. You should get in a quiet environment. You shouldn't have the TV on. You should be absolutely focused, deep focused, like you're in a testing environment. A bar prep course can help you do that as well. So if you're not using a bar prep course, it's even more important to find out, to structure, to build a schedule, and to have discipline. Again, maintaining a normal life, mental health is of the utmost importance, especially in our profession. We deal with a lot of stress. We can deal with a lot of anxiety. It's about managing that. And self-care, mental health care, you have to tackle that first. If you're not making sure that you're in the right place mentally, everything can fall apart. So try to maintain a normal life, and you do that by having a normal schedule. And then last, again, before I go into more tactical tips, Pipeline to Practice is here. Today, Mike and I are giving the presentation, but we have an entire board that is more than willing and ready to help. And we've joined the board, and we're part of Pipeline Practice because we love mentoring, we love helping out, and we love giving back. People have done that for us, and we hope to do that for you. So, Mike, is that pretty much the summation of the high level before we get to questions at the end and before I get into tactical tips right now?
Absolutely. I think I couldn't have said it any better myself. So, yeah, let's dive in a little bit and share some tactics with them. How about?
Okay, that sounds great. And again, you have 26 years. You're a tremendous resource for knowledge, so I hope they do ask questions at the end. I don't think mine will be as polished or as refined as your presentation, but I will try. My presentation deals with top 3 tactical tips for studying for the bar exam right now. And again, whether you're in a bar prep course or you're not, I think this can be applicable to everybody. If you're not in a bar prep course, it's even more important to make sure you're being disciplined, that you're committing every day to studying, that you're not taking days off. We're all going to have bad days. I've had bad days, but it's getting through it. You know, everyone can, to hit your athletic metaphor, you know, everyone can work out when they feel good, but it's those who work out when they feel bad or are having an off day that makes a champion. And that's what you're really trying to do, is you're trying to get into mental shape. These are like two-a-days as you study for the bar exam, because it's going to be some of the most strenuous studying you've ever did in your life. At least that's how it was for me, and it was very fresh. It's, just a little longer than a year ago for me. So this presentation is taken off. It's derived from a column I wrote for Above the Law called The Top 7 Tactical Tips for Studying for the Bar. I reduced that to 3, but at the end there's a link to the full article if you care to look at it. So getting into that, let me go back real quick. So getting into that, I thought Bar Hero was an excellent resource to practice MBE multiple choice questions. Like Mike alluded to, there's 100 in the morning, 100 in the afternoon. That's a total of 200 questions. You're shooting for 60 to 65%. One of the ways that helped me, besides old books or even current books from Barbary and other sources, was Bar Hero. Bar Hero is free. It's a great supplement to practice questions that the bar prep courses offer. You can do it online. It's broken down by section, but there's also aggregate courses when you get done reviewing by section, and you can take it as many times as you want. It's not subscription. It doesn't cost any money. It doesn't take a credit card. It's completely free. I included the link here. I did this a lot. I did this a lot in my off time. I did this a lot at coffee shops, and I thought it was just a tremendous resource to work as a supplement. And the more you do, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Again, the end goal is 60 to 65%. So if you're getting less than that on Bar Hero, don't get down on yourself. You're going to get better and better and better. So again, I included the link here. I think you should do it whether you're in a bar prep course or not. It's completely free. It's online, and it's one of the resources I use extensively to help me pass the bar. The second one is flashcards. I use Critical Path, but I know there's a number of companies that do flashcards. Again, this is for those 200 MBE questions. I believe I think it was less than $100 for these flashcards that I bought through Critical Path, but you can go through a number of companies. Flashcards are a great way. They're great quick hitters. You can do these online. You can do these in 15-minute intervals. You can do these in deep work sessions. You can do these with friends. You can make this a social game. Again, I've failed over and over and over while doing this, but through notes and through repetitive practice, I really enjoyed these. I thought the flashcards, above all else, helped me pass the bar. Again, my goal today is to give you tactical tips. So 1, you can use Bar Hero. 2, I would recommend flashcards. I don't think anything else substitutes what flashcards can do for you in terms of building the memory and building the muscle to just bring it up in a flash. And you're going to need to know these answers pretty quickly when you're taking the bar exam. It is a very intense set time that you have to answer these questions, and I think the flashcards were one of the best, if not the best way to practice for it. My third one is to use state bar websites. Texas, where Mike and I are in the state, had an excellent state bar website, and they give you the past MPT questions, short answer, essay questions, MBE questions, and again, I thought one of the best recommendations or advice was on this, and this is the tip I included pertains to the essay part. So it reads, you should carefully read the question and the call of the question. I found too often while talking with others who didn't do good at the bar that they read a question and they answered something completely different. So it's very important to understand what is the call of the question for this specific essay question. You have to pay attention to the facts. Don't assume additional facts. Don't bring additional facts that aren't inherent in the question itself. Include more than a mere conclusion when it asks to explain the answer fully. Respond to the call of the question again. Stay on track. Practice writing in complete sentences and composing paragraphs. I think Mike talked about this a little, but you have to put pen to paper. you have to type out the answers. You can't do everything mentally. You actually have to practice like you're doing the test for real. Organize your responses, answer in subparts, if any, and keep in the order asked. Strive for clarity and good communication in your writing. I think practice, a bar prep course, repetitive practice will get you there, but it's going to start off rough for you, especially as you just begin your bar studying. And then avoid lengthy or unnecessary discussion of general or extraneous matters. Again, try to be clear in your writing, be concise, be pithy. I think at the end of the day, you want to make sure in terms of practicing that you're being honest with yourself. It's easy to do MBE questions. It's much harder to do the essay questions because you have to take the time to commit to sit down and go through the hypotheticals and actually put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. And I didn't mention it in my top 3 tactical tips, but the performance test is critical. You can't ignore that. Each part of the bar exam is very important, and if you don't have the if you don't plan in your studies, you're failing. What is it? If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So I know too many people who have taken the easy way out in terms of studying for the performance test or the essay, and they did not get the results they wanted. If you want to see the complete list of tactical tips, I've included the link here. You can just copy paste it, take a screenshot of it, or you can even Google it, and it's right on the website above the law. And it kind of overlaps with a lot of what Mike has said already. So. Now we're on questions and conversation. Mike, did you have anything you'd like to add or any question prompts?
I think the first thing I would say is amen to everything you said. That is spot on, every bit of it, and couldn't have said it any better. Yeah, and I guess I think probably some of the questions I get is does a bar review course matter? And obviously my answer is biased, but I think that at the end of the day. Yeah, and I won't say which one matters, but I think one of the things a bar review course does is help narrow material. And I've known people who passed did it with their law school notes. But, as you know, the coverage of a secured transactions class in law school is often much vaster than what's tested on the bar exam, which is typically just perfection and priority. So to the extent that you have a bar review course, it's guiding you. And, I think the other thing, too, people say, how do I afford these things? And for those students who have devoted time to public interest or intend to go into a public interest job, the tuition can be very low and very reasonable. And I know I can say for sure, at least speaking for Barbary, is we have never said no to somebody because of money. So don't let finances get in the way of deciding whether or not to choose a course.
But Mike, and I don't have a dog in this race. I'm not connected to Barbary or Kaplan
right.
or Themis or any of the other. But what I found, my friends who ask me, should I do a bar prep course? And I say, unless you're, very disciplined, and unless you can set a time a day to study it and force yourself to do it, and unless you're very self-motivated, I think you should do a bar prep course. But I think more than just the material that's covered I found those who have done bar prep courses, when you talk about resources, it's not just the webinar and it's not just the books, but do they have, I've heard they have essay graders and they have other stuff. So I think that's something. Can you speak to a little of that? Again, I don't know. I didn't take a bar prep course, but if you could speak to that maybe a little bit.
Absolutely. No, so just to give you an example, at Barbary last year, we graded almost 77,000 essays. So I employ an army of essay graders, and throughout the course, there are essay assignments assigned that you turn in for grading and get individualized feedback. There are multi-state questions that are assigned, and the computer tracks your progress, identifies strengths, identifies weaknesses. There are attorney advisors out there. We answered, my team of attorneys answered about 120,000 questions that students put in over the course of the summer. So it really is, it's a hand-holding, right? It's somebody who's got your back, who's helping lead you along and get you across the finish line.
All right, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but you do have 26 years of experience. Have you found any resource in particular? You know, everyone's going to get the books, they're going to get the material, whether it's Kaplan, Barbary, whatever, but anything that students really enjoy that they get out of being in a bar prep course versus not? You know, like myself, I felt like I was on an island and I just went at it every day. But in terms of bar prep course, it seems like there are just these additional services that maybe people don't know about or just aren't, marketed as well. But through word of mouth, I've heard people take advantage of these and have really enjoyed them.
Yeah, no, I think part of it is you talked about the island, and there is an aspect of we're all in this together, or you could view it as misery loves company. But having a team together who are all going through the same thing can be both comforting and supporting, although it can be freaking out for some people. So that's one, is that you're traveling a journey with people together. I think secondly, a lot of folks find the lectures themselves to be really interesting or different, because you're going to hear law professors do something they've never done, which is ask a question and then answer it themselves. These are individuals who are dedicated to teaching the law, not hiding the ball. And then I think kind of the final piece in terms of stuff people really enjoy is that sense of progress, right? Because every bar review course is going to provide you with a daily update. Here's where you are. Here's what you've done. Here's where you are, and here's where you should be. And so they're always giving you a very, very good reference of comfort, kind of knowing in a way that you're on track. And that can, and as you know, as you get into July or February, right before the bar, there gets to be a real worry, am I doing the right thing today? And I think that's something that bar review courses don't market a lot, but it can be a real help to people.
Now, Mike, I can't see questions, but you might be able to see if someone asks a question, so feel free to,
we don't have any. So we may have done them all in silence.
Sure. Well, unless we get one, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions since we have you. And again, I think this is tremendous to talk to someone who's seen it all, who has a plethora of experience in this. For those who do take a bar prep course, or even those who don't, regardless, what are you noticing in the difference between those who are successful and those who fail? Like, why did someone fail who has enrolled in a bar prep course, or why is someone not getting the results that they thought they were going to get?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm so glad you asked that, because the single greatest cause of success or failure when you're enrolled in a bar review course or not is doing the work. Basically, we look at thousands of points of data, and what I can tell you, at least for the students who come through our course, students who do 75% or more of the work almost always pass. It's the people who look up in June and go, gosh, it's a really nice day outside. I think I'll go to the lake today and then do double tomorrow. And so those are the people who come up short and fail the bar exam. So do the work. Keep up with the program, and you're going to do great.
That makes sense. And I guess I'm going to ask a couple more unique questions, because I feel like if someone took the time to attend this or watch it later or do it on demand, I want us to bring unique value and to make sure they get something out of it. So over the years, bar exams have changed. They've changed the grading. They've changed the weighting. I started at a law school in Michigan. I transferred to SMU in Texas. But in Michigan for a while, if you did good enough on the MBE, the essay wasn't graded. And then from somewhere between 2009 2012, no matter how well you did on the MBE, the essay was graded. And then around 2012, the essay changed the weighting that the essays were worth more than they were previously. I can't talk to specific numbers, but it caused Michigan pass to decline. The passage rate dropped precipitously. And we're talking about maybe close to, it was drastic. But other states have struggled in terms of their passage rates. California, Texas have dropped. Are you finding, is it because of the essay or the MBE more? I'm sure it's because of both, as well as the performance tests. But, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of things going on. So Michigan's an interesting example, and I mean, what a great historic memory on your part. And I won't nerd out too much. Basically, what happened in Michigan is they used to have a rule that if you got a 152 on the multi-state or higher, that they did not grade your essays at all. And what happened was this created this perverse incentive to study for the multi-state and disregard the essays. And what the Michigan examiners saw were a lot of people who were getting 149s and 150s and then writing really bad essays. So Michigan then joined the rest of the world in creating a balanced approach between essays and multi-state. So that was historic. Now, that does not explain the downturn in bar pass. And that was driven by a precipitous fall in the multi-state scores. Because it turns out in every state but Oklahoma, the essay scores are curved to the multi-state scores. And so when MBE scores fall precipitously, passing scores fall precipitously, as it turns out. So what I want to be really careful is that everybody who's watching this doesn't then change their study to focus only on the MBE, because that would be a bigger mistake. You got it. But what was driving the fall off in the last few years was being driven primarily by the multi-state falling, which was overall dragging the passing scores down. And we could go into the nerdery of the equipercentile method and equating processes and everything else, but that would put everybody to sleep in a big hurry.
Well, let me ask you this as well, since I hope that anyone who's watching this gets tips and recommendations and advice and even some insight that they're not going to get from other programs or just by reading the web. I was born in California but moved to Michigan relatively early, grew up there. But California is interesting because I believe they have the top 3, maybe top 2, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, cut score on the MBE. So you could pass in other states, but not in California. And then they talked about redoing the cut score, even lowering it. That didn't ultimately come to fruition. And I just want to hear your thoughts, why the difference in cut scores across states, but maybe that's the UBE, and kind of your thoughts of where you think the future of California and these other high cut scores compared to the peers lies.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to talk about that. So California is, in fact, the highest cut score. Oregon was very close to it, and Oregon lowered their cut score a year ago. So to give you a sense of it, Texas, the bar exam we took has, as a passing score on the MBE, a 135 out of 200. It's like I said, about 60 to 65%. Around 133 to 137 is the most common cut score as you look across bar exams nationally. California, 144. And it doesn't sound like much, but if you look at the score distribution, if you look at the curve on the MBE, you see a really severe peak at around 140 to 142. And so that 144 is, first of all, above average. It's off to the right side of the peak. And you get a big fall off pretty dramatically. So that's what's going on. California has put a line in the sand that is a long way forward, if we're thinking long jump, of where everybody else is. A disproportionately long way forward. Now, you asked the question, why? And the answer is real simple. Because they always have. Attorneys are terrible about this idea of I suffered it and so must you. And that was basically what people who testified before the California Supreme Court said. We had to endure it, you should too. Now, you asked the question, what about the future?
Sure.
I don't know. It's hard to know, but if the bar has its way, that score will not move. Have I depressed you?
No, you made an interesting point. It may not sound like much, but again, if you do look at the bell curve, the data, it is extreme in terms of the percentage of bar takers who lie between these scores, these difference in cut scores. So quite amazing. I guess I'll add another question since we're both in Texas. When I took it in Texas last February 2017, it was the first time, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they jumped from 10 experimental questions to 25.
Right, yeah.
And some people blamed that in February 2017 when I took it for the lowest bar passage in the history of Texas to these experimental questions. But then the following February, which is this February, it was an even lower passage rate here in Texas.
Right.
So can you speak to the experimental questions and if you believe that's throwing bar test takers off, or what was the prompt in experimental questions that these bar takers are going to see for the next bar test?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked that, because I think the biggest problem with experimental questions is that people are aware of them. Because and I bet there was at least, I bet if you're honest, I bet there was at least once or twice where you're reading a question, you think, gosh, this question seems hard or weird. I wonder if it's experimental. And any brain power spent in the exam pondering the experimentality of a question is brain power wasted. So bar takers obsess on these things. There's no way of knowing which way they are. And actually, I got to say also, I hate the term experimental. What they really are is they're not experimental, they're proposed. So the way this, and stand by for some psychometric nerdery. The study of psychometrics is the study of standardized exams. And an item or question to be valid has to be field tested. In other words, which is fancy term for, you got to give it to folks and see how it works. So what the bar examiners are doing with those quote-unquote experimental questions is they're field testing potential new questions. And so that's all it's about. It doesn't affect the equating. It doesn't affect the scoring, but it just drives the brains of bar exam takers to distraction.
I think you're exactly right. When I was taking it, knowing that there was this jump in experimental questions, I was actually mentally thinking, is this an experimental question? Is this an experimental question? This has to be an experimental question. But I was able to compartmentalize a little bit. I hope, these new test takers are going to be able to do that as well. I guess another question for you. You mentioned that your company and you have looked over, thousands, millions of data points. How have you determined that 2.5 months, I think that's the time, 10 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, was the most optimal time to begin studying for the big test?
Nobody's ever asked me that. So do you want the honest answer, or do you want some pseudo-scientific bullshit?
Both. Let's throw everything here. I think our viewers deserve it.
No, I tell you what, I don't want to waste everybody's time. You know what the honest answer is? We start when law school graduates. So the optimum time is when I can get your full attention. Now, here's the fun data point I'll share with you is we have a program that we offer outside of the U.S., which is intended for non-U.S. JDs. So these are individuals with foreign credentials, like you may be licensed in Germany or Bolivia. That program runs for either 6 or 10 months, and we get amazing results from it. So if you ask me what I think the ideal time is, I think the ideal time is probably something closer to 4 months for a JD, if I could wave a wand, but I can't, so I get 2 to 2.5.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's all about timing and what's convenient and what works. A lot of the content out there is geared to first-time test takers. Do you have any advice for second-time test takers, even third?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so my advice for second and third are the same, but it probably narrows in its focus. So I think the first thing a repeating student should do is shake it off and know that some of the best attorneys in the world failed the bar exam on the first try. So it is not a sign of ignorance, of any lack of ability. It's just a sign, hey, you came up short on a really difficult test. So that's thing one. Thing two, get in touch with somebody who knows what they're doing and have them help you analyze your scores. Far too often, people who fail the bar exam interpret their scores themselves, and they interpret them wrongly. So get in touch with me, get in touch with somebody who does what I do, and say, hey, help me interpret these scores. And then from that interpretation, craft a study plan that builds on your knowledge. Because you said it, you're not a first-time taker. You're not building from a foundation of zero. You're shoring up holes in your knowledge. That's what it's about.
So say somebody did put out the capital outlay or had it funded by, a law firm or, had it discounted through a different program, and they paid for it once and then they failed. Do they then have to pay it again? Is this another capital outlay that they have to expend?
No, it's an emotional outlay. It's a physical outlay, but it is not a capital outlay.
So with your company or any company, they don't. Okay, there's no additional fee to take a bar prep course again.
No. Okay. Free repeat on the second try. Hey, Renwei, I've got time for one more question, and then I got another meeting I got to get to at the bottom of the hour, if that's okay.
That's perfect. That's perfect. There's a tropical storm and hurricane going here, so sirens are going a little nuts here myself. So let's see if I guess let's open it. Do you have any parting thoughts for those who took the time to check out this program today?
I do, and it's this, and this is going to sound cheesy, but I think you'll concur, having done it, which is believe that you can do this. That I see people time and time and time again that say things like, "I never do well on standardized tests," and my response is, "Yes, you do. You did well enough to get into law school." So look up each day, look in the mirror and say, I do well enough on standardized tests, if that's as good as you can do. Look up in the mirror each day and say, I can pass the bar exam. I've survived 3 years of law school, and I'm going to make a damned good attorney. Do that, and hell, the next time I talk to any of you guys, it'll be at your swearing in.
Well, that's great. I think we can end it with that then.
All right. Well, what a joy! This has been a pleasure. Thank you for including me. It was a ton of fun.
Well, we really appreciate having you. And again, anybody who's viewing, our contact information is right on the screen. So if you have any questions for Mike, it's mike.sims with one M at barbry.com. If you have any questions for myself, it's Project Renwei, RENWEI at gmail.com. Want to thank everybody for attending and for viewing today, and good luck in your bar studies. Have a great one.